Hey guys, we just wanted to welcome you back. There's going to be a lot of changes around here this year due to coronavirus, and one of those being me, Dr. Hanniger.
Dr. Adams here.
We're super excited to have you guys back in the building and cannot wait to see you learning in classes, but being involved in activities and just getting to know you guys throughout the school year. We're going to go ahead and go over some new topics that we need to make sure that all staff and students are abiding by, so that we can continue to be at Berry face-to-face learning.
Okay guys, just like Dr. Hanniger said, there are going to be some changes around here, but understand the changes are for our own safety, for staff and for students, to make sure that we're social distancing and to make sure that we are just complying to those things that are going to help us not be in each other's faces, not be in groups and those types of things. So understand, those are the reasons that we're doing these things. So let's talk about arrival and dismissal. So you know that usually there's only one spot to go in when you come in on the bus and one spot to go in when you come in as a car rider. Well, that's changed. We have 3 entries for bus riders. Okay, 3 entries for bus riders, and your bus driver will know what entry that will be. We'll make sure you have that information. And then there's going to be 2 entries for our car riders. Okay, when you enter the building, we want you not to go to the gym, but you're going to go straight to your locker. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about lockers later, but when you go to your lockers, you're going to drop off your coats, your lunches, and anything you possibly don't need in class. Like I said, we're going to give you more information about that later. After you go to your locker, if you're going to go eat breakfast, you're going to go eat breakfast in the cafeteria. Once again, we're going to make sure that we're setting every other seat, and we're going to make sure we're social distancing from our friends, but we're still going to be able to talk. We're going to have more information about that later, okay? Also, what we want to make sure that we do is, if you're not going to breakfast, you're going to go to class. Okay, and you're going to go walk straight into your class and sit exactly where your teacher tells you to. Our teachers are going to be in the hallways greeting you and making sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. We're really excited to see you walking in the halls and coming to school.
Also guys, if you're a band student, make sure to drop off your instrument in the band room with Mrs. Chesney. And also our athletes, if you have any athletic gear with you, Coach Milne will have the locker rooms available for you to store your gear. As Dr. Adams had mentioned regarding arrival, students that have to have breakfast, that are going to choose to eat breakfast with us at school, will report to the cafeteria before heading into class. Please make sure you keep your distance while going through the breakfast line. Make sure you're keeping that 6 feet of distance with your mask on. Once you sit down, make sure you guys are every other seat, and you may remove your mask at this time to eat and drink. When finished, put your mask back on. Make sure you throw away your food and clean up after yourselves. And then go ahead and head on to class or the band room or the PE locker, depending on what you need to put away. Another big thing is our non-breakfast eaters, those that are not eating breakfast. It's not a time to go and socialize in the commons, in the cafeteria area. Your job is to make sure you get to class so we keep everybody safe during arrival, when we're going to have a lot of students up and about throughout the building.
So let's talk about our hallways. All right, so it used to be that we still have 3 minutes of passing time. Don't worry about that, okay? But your social time in the hallway is going to be kind of cut, because remember what we said in the earlier video, we don't want you guys standing in groups in the hallway, right? So what we need you to do is, if you need to go to your locker, you need to talk to your teacher and see if you need to go to the locker. But every passing time, you are not going to your locker, okay? Remember, we are only storing things in our locker that we don't need for class. We are going to be taking backpacks to class, okay? We're going to be taking backpacks to class. And remember, we want you to move to get to class. Your first priority is to get to class and get there quickly. And we'll talk more about cell phones, but there's a little surprise about getting to class and how much time you'll be able to have with your cell phone in your next class. Also, can't be collaborating in the hall. I know I already mentioned it, but I want to re-emphasize it. We cannot be in groups in the hall. If a teacher looks at you and says, hey, or even a student that says, hey, walk and talk, that means you got to move it along. And we got to maintain that distance. And at all times, guess what? We're wearing our mask.
And the only other piece, guys, other than going directly to class, is if you need to fill up your water bottle, passing time's a good time to do that. And if you need to use the restroom, that's also a good time.
So, Dr. Hanniger, why are we having to fill up water bottles?
Well, good point, because we're not going to have water fountains on. What you'll see is either a red cap on top of them, or they've removed the triggers that allow the water to be able to run. So we're trying to keep you guys safe in all areas of school so that you guys can be with us on a daily basis.
Okay, once again, let's talk about lockers, okay? Guys, you have 3 minutes of passing time. Going to your locker, there's gonna be minimal opportunities to go to your locker. We don't want a lot of people going to the locker because we want you carrying everything in your backpack that you need for class, okay? Now, somebody's gonna say, but Dr. Adams, my cell phone's in my locker. What do you think about that, Dr. Haniger?
I think you should keep it in your backpack on silenced and vibrate.
So you're saying we could take our cell phones to class and we can have it in our backpack?
Yep, as long as you're not actively using them in class and that they're staying in your backpacks.
So, and I actually agree with this, but you know how I feel about it. If it causes a disruption or distraction, either the teacher's gonna have to confiscate it or you're gonna have to come see one of us, okay? And you know, if you have to come see one of us, you know who we're calling next, and we might even use your own cell phone to call.
And so the other thing is, guys, Dr. Adams talked about this too. It's so important not to form groups outside of your locker. Really, simply put, leave one class and go to the next. Absolutely socialize and talk to your buddies as you're walking to that next class. But we're going to get to our next point here with cell phones. There's a little reward, I guess you could say, for getting to class on time. And we'll talk about that here shortly.
So Dr. Haniger, I just want to make sure that we were very clear about what goes in your locker and what comes to the classroom in your backpack. So say it's really cold outside and I have a coat. Should I take my coat to class?
No, it should be in your locker. Right when you guys arrive, put it in your locker and you'll need it at the end of the day.
What about my lunch?
Lunch is a great place to store in your locker. That's something you don't have to keep in your backpack. And when you head to lunch, you can stop by your locker to grab that.
So I'm sure you guys are constantly going to ask the question, what should I keep in my locker and what should I take to class with me? These are the things to live by. If you need something in class, take it to class with you in your backpack so you don't have to keep stopping by your locker. If you don't need it in class, keep it in your locker. You'll be able to stop by there periodically or with teacher permission.
So just like I'm new this year, we got two new things here at Berry. One is that we're allowed to wear backpacks to and from class. That's to help reduce the amount of times we need to be going to our locker. And as Dr. Adams hit, anything you think you should be using in class or need in class, bring that with you. Anything that's something before school, after school, lunchtime should stay in your locker. Your backpack, we expect that your cell phone is in your backpack. You are welcome.
What? Dr. Haniger, come on.
Yeah. You can leave it in your locker if you want, but don't expect to be going to your locker to check it. So you can leave it in your backpack. It needs to be silenced or on vibrate. And there's a little added reward here. So our hope for you is that you're going to be walking and talking. You're not going to be stopping in groups. And the reward for doing so is when you get to your next class, while passing time is still occurring, you're allowed to get your cell phone out and do a few things. There's some can-dos and some cannot-dos with your cell phone in class. So some can-dos are you can check notifications, you can check your text messages, you can even look through social media if you'd like. Some of the can't-dos, though, you can't be playing music out loud. If you're watching TikTok, it needs to be appropriate. We shouldn't see each other showing each other's phones to cause a distraction in class. This is a time for you to personally check some things that you need to check and not make it a bigger deal than it needs to. You can't be making TikToks in class. You can't be filming other students or teachers or taking pictures. That's all off limits.
Is that Dr. Haniger, is that just in the hallways, or what about if you take your cell phone into the bathroom? Can you take your cell phone into the bathroom?
Guys, that is one of the biggest rules you cannot break. Using your phone in a bathroom or using it in a locker room is something that can get you into serious trouble. So our not only recommendation but expectation is that they stay in your backpack. When you're in class before the bell rings, you can get it out and check it. But if it becomes a problem or an issue, it's likely going to get confiscated and it's going to be referred to one of us in the office. So don't lose out on this privilege. It is truly a privilege to be able to do this. So use it respectfully and responsibly.
So Dr. Haniger, you know, I get it that this is a change and I will absolutely accept this change because kids know how I am about this. But as he said, use it wisely. Digital citizenship at all time. We've talked about it before. Make sure you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do and it's appropriate. And if you're watching things or listening to things, that they're appropriate as well. Because you do not want to have that confiscated by an adult, or you do not want to have to lose that privilege. I'm with you, Dr. Haniger.